Hi, I'm Jessie Shternshus, and I'm really excited to be a part of the Bureau of Digital's online summit. My presentation today is called Talk the Talk, Making Your Message Stick. How many of you, when you're asked to give a presentation, get extremely nervous and almost feel like you have to go for your inhaler or breathe into a brown paper bag or look for the nearest exit? How about if you're asked to do something off the cuff or improvise? Well, I hope by the end of the talk today that you'll feel a little less nervous and have to take a little fewer puffs on the inhaler and feel a lot more comfortable. So I want to take you back to when I was little. I used to love dressing up and putting on shows for my parents with my little brother. We used to have these really ugly bed sheets. They were like pink and orange and had these really bold flowers, and we would hang them up in the doorway in our living room, and we would pretend that they were like these curtains, these Broadway curtains, and then we would put on a show for my parents. And our favorite go-to was Annie. We loved to do The Sun Would Come Out Tomorrow. Well, I loved to do The Sun Would Come Out Tomorrow. I usually made my brother play the dog Sandy, which he hated, and I would just sing the same rendition over and over and over again. And eventually my parents probably got sick and tired of this, so they sent me to a children's acting class. And the acting class had like regular theater and improv. And I was about 10 years old when I first got introduced to improv. And it was there that I just really fell in love with that environment and really never looked back. Flash forward to being a teacher, which is what I did right before I started my own company. And I still really consider myself a teacher. Doing training and facilitation is very much about teaching and being in front of people and presenting, and it takes a lot of the same skills. So that takes us to today. My name is Jessie Shternshus. I'm the owner of the Improv Effect, and my company helps individuals and companies worldwide with collaboration and communication and creative problem-solving skills. We work a lot with individuals on their presentation skills, helping them with their storytelling and also helping them with their delivery. And so we're going to work today on both the idea of storytelling, putting a presentation together, and the things you can do to be better at delivering. One of the things that I've done to build my business is to apply the skills that I learned from improv as an improviser to the work that I do every day. So instead of thinking of improv as a skill that you need to be a comedian, they're actually great skills to help you listen better, help you play off of an audience, help you be more self-aware, think about what other people are thinking and feeling, and how you come across. I actually built my entire business on presenting and doing workshops at conferences. And what I noticed is that the people who started businesses around the same time as I did, about 10 or 11 years ago, the ones that decided to go ahead and become speakers really shot out past the ones who didn't, because it put them on a platform to be an expert. For whatever reason, becoming a speaker really equals in people's mind being the expert. So even if you have the same amount of knowledge as somebody out there in the audience, because you're on the stage speaking, it really elevates your brand. And so I would encourage people to start to push themselves to be speakers if you haven't. If it's something that you've been thinking about for a while and you want to try to do it, it really is important. It's important for you to try, and it's something that really helps you and your company. So let's pull back the ugly curtains and start talking about what it takes to be a speaker. So the first thing you need to do is think about what kind of speaker you want to be. There are two types of speakers. There are self-centric speakers and there are audience-centric speakers. So a self-centric speaker is somebody who delivers the talk that they want to give without any concern for what the audience is thinking, feeling, or wanting. So I'm sure you've seen speakers just like this, where they kind of force an agenda on whoever will listen, and they have no concern for what their audience even cares about. On the flip side, there are audience-centric speakers. These are people who deliver talks that the audience wants to hear, and they use language, concepts, stories, and visuals that resonate with the audience and leads them to action. So let's decide that we want to be audience-centric speakers. So how do we prepare our presentation? The first thing we want to do is think about what kind of presentation we want to give. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll tell people to put together a document, like a Google Doc, or just even get some Post-its or a white sheet of paper and put down all the topics that you know about, then all the topics that you love, and then what are the topics that your audience cares about. Now, sometimes there are things that you know, but there aren't necessarily things that you love. So you could be passionate about something and know about it. There could be something that you know about but don't really care for, and vice versa. So you want to find that sweet spot in the middle and go for there. And then you need to figure out, who is my audience? And what problem are you going to try to solve by giving them your presentation? So in order to do that, you're going to do an audience analysis. You're going to ask these questions. First, why are they here? What are they like? What do you want them to do? How can you make their lives better? And how can you best reach them? You can also do an empathy map. So some of you might be familiar with doing these for like ideations and persona building. You can also do these for your presentation, because your presentation is a product. So what do you think your audience would be thinking and feeling, hearing and seeing, saying and doing? And what is their problem? So what is that pain? And what would they gain from listening to what it is you're going to be talking about? So you can prepare all of these things, all right? But you need to remember that your audience, even though they might all be here at this PM summit, They might all be here for the Agile convention. They might all be here for a React conference. But that doesn't mean they're a bunch of amorphous blobs, right? They all are individual people. And so as much as you prepare, which you should do, you still may have a few outliers that you're not going to necessarily be able to relate to. And make sure that you're not getting so hung up on the couple of people who maybe didn't connect with you that time, because there will be plenty more that, because you prepared and you thought about who's in the audience, you did connect with. We can't always connect with every single person, but we can surely try hard to connect with as many people as possible. Guy says, if you want to know what your audience wants, you should ask them. So one of the things you can do before you're about to give a presentation, and this can be informally or formally, before a sales meeting, before a conference, go and find out who's going to be in the room and ask them what they want to hear about. Ask the conference organizer, can I have the names of a couple of people? Can I email a couple of people? Can I call them? Can I find out what they want to hear? And ask them a couple of questions. Use that information to help guide you and your presentation to make it better. Because knowing your audience is the key to capturing one. When you're developing your message, you want to do this. So instead of asking yourself, what am I going to say? You want to ask yourself, what do I want to have happen? And what do you want your audience to say, do, and feel after they hear you talk? Again, what do you want your audience to say, do, and feel after they hear your talk? Next, we're going to think about how to develop our message through story. So I'd like to start by telling you a little story. So several years ago, I was asked to give a keynote at a pretty well-known retail company. They had an internal conference for a bunch of their engineers. And I was getting ready to go to San Francisco to give the keynote. And because it was a retail clothing company, I was a little uptight about what I was going to wear. So I was looking through my closet, trying to figure out, how do I dress nice for this? Normally I wear pants or jeans. And I thought, well, I probably should dress up a little bit. So I thought, I'll wear a dress and tights. So I had to give the keynote twice. And so the first day I was going to wear this dress. So anyway, I get to the conference and they greet me there. It's going to be in this big movie theater. And they give me the battery pack and they say, okay, we need you to get all hooked up, go ahead and take the battery pack, put this on. You're going to put the wire up through and then it will hook on over your head and the microphone will clip on. I'm like, okay. So they said, just go behind the screen and you can figure it out. So I go behind the screen, trying to figure it out. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. Where am I supposed to clip on this battery pack? I don't have pants. I've got tights and a dress. So I'm like, oh no. So I tried to make do and I clipped the battery pack to the back of my tights. And then I go out front and I've, got all wired up and I'm trying to, pretend I'm fine. And then I go to give my keynote. Well, as I'm getting towards the end of my keynote, I start feeling the battery pack tugging down. And I can start to feel the battery pack pulling on my tights, which is attached to the wire, which is attached to the mic, which is attached to my head. And I start feeling the tights rolling. And I'm like, oh no. I'm about to give birth to a battery pack. This is not going to be cute. and I'm like super uncomfortable, and I'm trying not to wiggle, and I'm trying to give him a keynote, and I'm thinking, if this thing falls out from underneath me, I'm going to be so embarrassed. So I'm like, okay, do I speed up my keynote? What do I do? And I'm trying to act really calm, cool, and collect while, I'm literally trying to shimmy things to stay where they're supposed to be. So I finished my keynote. Luckily, everything stayed semi in place. And I didn't have another battery-packed child or anything like that. Well, the next day when I gave the keynote again, you better believe I wore pants. So moral of the story, wear things you're comfortable with, and definitely wear something where you can clip your battery pack on. Do not wear dress and tights in this situation, or find an alternative, maybe like a belt or something. I don't know. Better off to be comfortable than cute, I think. So the idea with this is we use stories to make sense of our world and to share an understanding with others. So I easily could have talked about what to wear or what not to wear when giving a presentation, and I could have put a bunch of bullets on the slide here. And that's fine, except for you probably wouldn't remember any of them, and anybody could put a bunch of bullets on a slide. It's really not that captivating and not that interesting. The audience wants emotional satisfaction. So with the battery pack story, it's embarrassing. I'm vulnerable, but it's okay if I told it to you. I'm okay telling it. I don't mind if it means that it makes an impact and you learn something from it, right? And so hopefully you won't make the same mistake that I did. And it's something you'll remember a lot more than a bunch of bullets. And it doesn't mean when you're doing something that's emotionally satisfying with a story that it has to have like a perfect Disney ending. It just means that it has to have some emotional pull so that we care about what it is you're saying. When you're starting to put together your talk, you can do storyboarding, just like you would when you're doing something for a product, and storyboarding the customer journey, right? So you can do that same thing. So with the battery pack story, in that first square, I would put maybe me looking in the closet trying to find what to wear, and then I'd write a couple of sentences at the bottom. And this is how I'd practice my talk. And then the middle might be me getting ready for the talk, trying to figure out where to put the battery pack. And maybe the third one would be me giving the talk, right? And you can just go on like that. And so you're not writing out every word that you're going to say, scripting it out word for word. You're just writing a couple of things, themes and transitions, so that when you look at the visual, when you look at the words, it's enough for you to practice getting to really understand your talk and knowing what it is. And this is a great way to start working on your talk. So if you look at this, you can see this is a way that I got ready for a big keynote for an Agile conference a couple of years ago. And you can see how I laid it all out and got ready. And the nice thing about this is you can move things around visually to see. And so it's kind of modular. So you can take pieces out, move it around for different audiences. So you might find yourself giving the same keynote over and over again. And so the storyboard can help you, so you can take out a piece and put in a new piece that speaks better to your audience. And that's why you want to think of your presentation as a product. How can you build it, measure it, learn, and continue to make it better and better? You do that by writing blog posts. You can do that by tweeting ideas and concepts. Sometimes at the conference, people are giving you feedback through Twitter and through other social media, you can use that as language that you can then put back into your talk. Now, what about the delivery? We spend tons and tons of time preparing what we're going to say, but we hardly ever practice how we're going to actually say it. And that's the most important part. People first see us before they hear us. So there's a game you can try called Color Advance. And how it works is you and another person would partner up. And you'd practice by doing a story. So the first person would tell a story, and it could be about a vacation you've been on, maybe the worst job you've ever had, something like that. And you start to tell your story, and then the other person would say color when they want you to stop where you are and give more details, dig deeper. They would say advance when they want you to move to the next part of the story. So for instance, if I was going to tell you about a vacation I had been on, right? And I'm starting to tell you, so I might say, a couple of years ago, my family and I went to Iceland, and we went to this beach that was really beautiful, and my partner says color. Well, it had all these beautiful black smooth stones, and we started to collect them and put them in our pockets. Advance. Then we got back in the car and we traveled towards this place that had a bunch of icebergs. Color. They were blue and turquoise, and there were actually boats going around that you could get in and tour around. And some of it was melting, and it floated out to sea. Advance. Then we quickly saw that there were so many tourists that we kind of got irritated, so we got in the car and went to find a place for lunch. So the idea is that you're going to go back and forth, so then your partner would get a chance to try it, and then you would say color advance to them. This is a great way to get feedback, to hear how your partner reacts to your story, and where you need to be more detailed, and where you could summarize things and simplify. There's another exercise you could do called pitch back. What you would do in this case is you could tell your story or give a pitch or a sales presentation to a couple of your colleagues or your teammates. And then what you would do is you'd have one of them present back what they heard. What's nice about this is you can then hear back what people remember and what they don't maintain, what they don't pick up. Also, what language they remember. And this gives you a good idea of what your core message is. So that is really, really important. What is that core thing that you need them to remember? Because if for some reason in pitch back, they end up not remembering the thing you need them to remember, they remembered the wrong thing, then you need to go back and review your presentation and make sure you emphasize the correct core message. Then we need to think about awareness of who we are and how we come across. I'm sure you've seen people who sway back and forth or crack their knuckles or they stare at the ground. We all have these sort of quirky habits that we have to work on. It's part of presenting. And the more we practice, the better we get at kind of course correcting and understanding what those little quirks are. I was working with somebody and he was giving a presentation and he started playing with his wedding ring. So he's in the middle of his presentation. He just kept swirling and swirling his ring. At some point, nobody was listening to anything he was saying. He's just swirling his ring and twirling it around, and the ring comes off and starts rolling across the stage, and you literally watched it go from one side of the stage to the other. It was crazy. So make sure like you're not fidgeting with anything. A lot of people fidget with their clickers and it starts to become like a baton routine. So try and keep that under control. You want to make sure you're not playing a game of Fruit Ninja, right? Watch what your hands are doing. Keep them still or use them to emphasize what it is you're doing. So use hand gestures, but do it on purpose, right? Use them to emphasize tactfully and not to like slice fruit in the air. And remember that mistakes happen. We're human, and that's fine. If something happens, call out the elephant in the room. It's okay, we all saw it, and then move on. Remember, there's strength in vulnerability, and it's okay to call yourself out. But it is important to be prepared for the unprepared moments. How many of you know the Michael Bay story where he was asked to present at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas for Samsung? Well, he was paid a lot of money to present this new curved television model. And so he comes out and the MC is interviewing him and says, Michael, tell us about the new Samsung TV. And he just freezes. Michael Bay says nothing. And the MC is like, Michael, what do you like about the beautiful curved TV? And Michael's like, silent, doesn't say anything. So I think the MC was like, okay, I gotta help this dude. So he says, Michael, when you're sitting at home and you're watching one of your movies, what do you like to do when you're watching movies? Trying to help him get more comfortable, talk about something that's familiar. Michael literally says like 2 words and then he just turns around and walks off the stage. So to me, that is not being prepared for the unprepared moments. That is something that shouldn't happen. So his coach or whoever was working with him should have worked with him, in my mind, on improv. And you might be asking yourself, how on earth does improv help me with my presentations? Well, think about it. How many of you have given a talk that didn't go as planned? So improv helps you train that muscle so that when you're thrown off, you're so used to thinking on the spot and working on things that are unscripted that you know what to do in those moments. And you've learned them in a fun way that your brain knows exactly how to behave. Remember, we're all improvisers. You're not walking around with a script every day. There's no script or formula to deal with the shift that happens every day. Every moment is a new moment. In my classes, I have students who have aspirations to be on stage, but I have so many more students and so many more people that I work with in business who they don't want to become comedians. They want to be better at listening. They want to be better at playing off one another, at thinking on the spot, at collaborating. And they're taking the time to learn how to apply improv to their everyday life. They can try playing games like Gibberish Dictionary, where you're given a made-up word and then the person next to you has to define it. Sounds silly, but it's about learning how to think quickly and be the expert of the unknown. It's another great way to work that muscle in the brain. If you want to learn more about these kinds of games and examples to be better at presenting, to be more comfortable with thinking on the spot and spontaneity, You can check out my book. It's called Control Shift, 50 Games for 50 Blanking Days Like Today. It's on Amazon. I hope that the next time you're asked to give a presentation, whether it's formal or informal, you don't feel like sticking your head in the sand, that you have a few more tips and techniques and you feel a little bit more comfortable. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.